and welcome to A Day Without Your Mind. Perfection and reality. They live with unconditional happiness, looking around at their life, not one thing is wrong. Bright smiles presented all around them, especially on the ones they love. Their family all sleeps in the same caring house, saying goodnight and I love you before they rest their eyes. They've never shed a tear. And every peaceful morning they wake up to the sun shining in their room that only holds good memories of better times that keep getting better as they live a perfect life. But eventually their smile fades, and 'tis sadness that pours out of their eyes, and their family stops caring and saying goodnight before they turn off the pointless lights that can't keep them out of darkness. And as they live their perfect life, it becomes less perfect, because perfection doesn't belong in reality.
Human dissection. The cold metal of a scalpel slides down my salivating throat. Blood rushes to the surface and pools in the bowl of my collarbone. My skin wrinkles as it separates, stillness taking over me. This is a human dissection of the person I used to be.
Don't ask them. Who am I? I asked to everyone, but found that no one I know knows.
Sundays are for laundry. The smell of Tide enters our noses and settles in its favorite nostril, the right one. We do this every Sunday at the crack of dawn and talk over the latest items we have for the load this week. Today, the pile of his load is significantly larger than usual. There are clothes he hasn't even worn. We would know because we lay his clothes out every day. Now, asked every woman, doesn't he know this process takes time? The smell grows stronger, melting into the left nostril. The fury of every housewife fills that small room as his clothes pile the whirlpool. Now, said every woman, he could have put the unworn clothes back into the closet. The washer load starts throwing around his clothes. Oh, how we itch to throw him around like that. Now, asked every woman, does he think we enjoy doing this? As he sits on the couch and watches the football game, getting chip crumbs in between the cushions, we glare at his head. If our stare could kill. Fatigue hits us at once. We're tired. The gas tube sits above the washer, aching to be cut. We grab the scissors. We see the lighter fluid in the garage. How easy it could be. Like a child reaching for cookies, we sneak and grab the lighter fluid and the lighter and scurry back to our places. On the count of 3, ladies. 1, 2, 3, boom.
Shape sorter. It doesn't fit, and it never will, yet you try and make it work. Others walk by and pity your efforts, suggestion and reinforcing that you try to ignore. What are you doing? Does it match the other shapes? It never will. Frustrated, you try and try harder, trying so desperately to force it into a spot that is not its own, knowing deep down that there is no place for its difference among the others. It is strange and regular, your shape to even hold it in hands, that now shake with frustration as you continue to try and shove it where you know it does not belong. But surely if you push just a little harder, it will. Or at least this is what you tell yourself as you refuse to accept it for what it is. Your fingers start to bruise and the cracking edges scrape your hands as you continue to twist and turn it, rearranging it to place it in a spot where it does not belong. It starts to hurt, but you only push harder and you let the pointless hope blind you until the shape splinters and breaks. Lemon. Surrounded by this yellow carcass, acid flows through my veins and unto the eager buds on the tongue. Stationary, never moving unless the hand of the cook grazes my skin. They cut and cut until the slices of my being can be stripped from my core and given to someone else. But not me. Oh, I get nothing. Stationary, never moving unless the bubbles rumble in your stomach, craving the southern drip of my yellow juice. Reaching into the heart, the belly of myself, you take. Take, take, take. And while I sit, I realize you need me. You need me to dig yourself out of the hole of thirst. You need me to bring flavor into your dull mixtures. You need me to settle in your body, bringing you gifts with each chew and each swallow. Surrounded by this yellow carcass, I sit. I take in your movements, your behavior, and prepare for the next time we meet again. Until then.
Astigmatism in my left eye. Vertical lines drift from left to right, for I am unable to see at night. Blind eyes take me through the dark forest you call life. Steps wary and hesitant, my breaths sharp like a knife. This is how I go by, with an astigmatism in my left eye.
Weapon of death. Death is given to some, while power is gifted to others. Power gifted to those who do not deserve it, and lives taken of the most deserving. I pierce fear into their bodies. Before my lead bullets put holes in the curtains of their skin, lay gently across their bones as I turn their warm blood cold. And the bullets that sit still in their body feels the thoughts that filled them turn empty, and hears the soul that fueled them stop singing as they lay on the ground where their last breath was taken. Another death caused by me. What an awful tragedy. A mother sees her child, a life that she so proudly bore, be robbed of everything she gave them, as she is robbed of every joy given to her. But I remain innocent in the eyes of blame. I'm taking a heartbeat, for I have never been given my own, and instead the blame rests heavily in the same fingers that pull my trigger and grip my still body that poisons their mind with hatred. But often I am only praised for taking the lives of those who do deserve it. But really, who deserves to have their life taken away, and so, how good am I?
Blood on your shirt. It pains me to see that stain, to see the shirt once worn with pride, now tossed and bloodied. With fighting over, daylight shines again, a reason to smile, to be happy, though memory sticks like glue when all I can see is the blood on your shirt stuck on you.
Indian dating show. I walked with hesitation. My room's lavender-colored walls had their fingers wrapped around my entire being. I dreamt of being tangled in the hot pink sea of my sheets. That warmth is a feeling like no other. The heat spreads from the tips of my toes to my fingertips until it completely fills my body. As I walk closer to my destination, my body aches to be back to our nest. However, confusion soon appears as I hear the foreign language being spoken from the TV. The skin in between my brows sink. As I walk into the so-called family room, I notice two things. The first thing being the blob of gray and black fur curled around the feet of my mother. The other being the smile on my mother's face that increasingly grows wider as she catches sight of me. I muster up a smile, trying my hardest to make it look real. My feet carry me to the kitchen. Mindlessly, I scoop the cold food onto my paper plate and set it in the microwave. Knowing the food was done being prepared a little over an hour ago, I still grow irritated with the thought of the faux warmth of the food. As I wait for the microwave to stop, I look over to the TV and search for whatever has my mom so invested in it. The gorgeous, long-haired Indian woman laughs at the obviously Google joke the man across from her just said. My mom, clearly amused, lets out a loud cackle and turns to me and tells me about how corny the joke was. How does one find such joy in something as simple as a sentence? Focusing back on my food, I stop the microwave right before it reaches 1 second. I grab my food and the Arizona from the fridge, my ears itching for whatever comment my mother is about to make. Soon, I hear the irritated sigh and the words, "Is that one of my drinks?" I slide my overs to look at my mom and notice the amusement in her eyes. She was being playful. I let out a soft chuckle and turned my attention to my food. In the passing hour, my body sank further into the faded brown couch that I sat on. The increasingly fleeting feeling of spending time with my mother returns back to me. Words flow between us, laughs fill the air, and emotions arise. Over the span of 3 episodes of an Indian dating show, I suddenly didn't miss the comfort of my room. I didn't miss the warmth. But now, I crave hers.
Melted flowers. I used to study the newly bloomed spring flowers in curiosity and wonder. How could something so ravishing be so close to me, where I could simply pluck it from the earth? Gently grazing the smooth, delicate petals with the tip of my fingers, I tracked their scent in my lungs as I breathed them in. I would bask in the surrounding colors that swam in the wind, and the sweet taste of chocolate would dissolve on my tongue. There was, at the time, always chocolate in my pockets, and if I were lucky, it would be melted into a liquid, almost like syrup, that would ooze out of the wrapper as I held it to my mouth to feel its warmth slip down my throat. It was the only thing I could find sweeter than the flowers. I was lucky. How could something so sweet be at the tip of my fingers when I desired it? These were the better times, the times when I would find joy and wonder in the most simple things, and the repetition would never get old. It wasn't until I had to learn the basic biology of plants and flowers that I no longer found joy in wondering about them. There was nothing to wonder. I would have preferred never to study them at all, to keep their becoming a simple mystery that I could only dream the possibilities of. But I had no choice. I was forced in growing up. Perhaps the lack of that education would have kept me in the fields that grew those springtime flowers, breathing in the familiar scent that I used to love. As I got older, my mother told me it was childish of me to continue carrying chocolate in my pockets, that it was unhealthy to eat it as much as I did. Something you did when you were 5, she would say. You're not 5 anymore. Unfortunately, I knew that, but it was all I had to remind me of the flowers and their sweetness, despite how it made me feel I was not a child anymore. So there began to be nothing sweet at my fingertips. I let go of that part of my childhood and deprived myself of the only sweet things I knew. Some days I'll yearn so badly for the same joy I used to feel so easily. I'll go out in the fields and try to admire the wonder behind the spring flowers and let melted chocolate from my pockets drip on my tongue. But now chocolate tastes bitter to me, and the becoming of beautiful flowers is something I can no longer bring myself to wonder about.
The art. 1. Her eyes gleam with the dash of white on top of the purple hue of her iris. The blue midnight sky bursts in her pupil. The orb head mirrors her irritation, dripping in red and oranges. 2. The flutter of her eyelashes are like cascades of feathers falling out of the pores of her lash line. The crook of her nose sits on top of the curl in her lip. Her cupid's bow falls deep into the plump gray shadows on top of her red-orange lips. 3. Her tears drip into the cool blue tears on her face. Such a contrast against the angst emotions grazing her face. The swoop of her eyebrows reveal her thoughts as the tears reveal the yellow highlight on her cheeks. 4. The droop of her eyes like an irate child. Is she angry or in angst? Feels of a grainy canvas fill my hand as I graze her axis. Thick, long, black strokes stick through her head. Is that her pain? 5. Her feet lay upon the blue orb. Is that her irritation? Her orange body is hot like fire and looks it as well. Her grip on the fruit is loose. She just lays upon it. 6. Suspended by a cord keeping her on top, the fruit absorbs her blue tears, but some escape. 7. The eye hangs, and one lone tear falls.
Fantasy by Katie Spears. My fingertips run through the silk clouds like the soft, thick fur from rabbits that multiply like the beautiful flowers growing beneath my bare feet, each flower a different color of the rainbow that stretches across the blue sky infinitely, twisting and turning like smooth taffy. The taste is sweet as the air that replaces the water, and my lungs rushing rapidly like the river, wrapping around me, dripping in my short hair and turning it white like the doves, flying above me, singing in my ears and flapping their soft wings as they drop their feathers, that turn into the falling stars in which I keep wishing on. That Which Makes Me Whole by Katie Spears. No acknowledgement is given to what is around me. I live like those who surround me, immersed by the world I hold in my hands and not in the world which holds me. No acknowledgement is given to what is inside of me. I ignore the yearning soul that hides under my distracted eyes that have no focus on me. In a face of stale expression that engulfs my world, no joy resides in the motionless thoughts which belong to me and those who share my reality. Day after day of no satisfaction to feed the hunger which my silent being craves, I am defeated by what I have let become of me.
Desperate for a change in purpose, I close my eyes in hopes to find a distraction of that which distracts me, and I'm subjected to the world around me. For the first time, I hear the call of Mother Nature in her stillness. Her hands reach out to me, offering a calm and content mind that the world I know cannot give. Unsure by her gesture, I am prompted to look to others for a sign of approval, but only find that those around me are trapped in the disapproval of their own lives, and I realize that they can never give a complacent thought. No acknowledgement is given to that which is around them or inside of them. They are trapped just as I am. They do not realize that there is beauty that lies beyond the world of emptiness holding their mind captive, a world of constant darkness that craves the light they fail to find. Yearning for this light, I am now aware that I must welcome her gesture that welcomes me.
I close my eyes and open my arms, as to give everything I am to this world of wonder that lies beyond my knowledge. And as the reassuring hands of nature clasp me in her grip, my thoughts have a new calm and the peace her new world offers to me through divine shades of every color that dance with swaying flowers, and the soft songs that swirl around the sun by birds and breezes. Her sweet compassion holds my pain that has been suppressed for so long, and slowly and freely it finally leaves me. Her gentle fingers wear plush gloves of green grass and moss, and blooming flowers spring from every crack and crevice in her skin, covering the rich brown soil and dirt that lies within. Trees stand in the palms of her hands, towering over me as I stand in awe. My hair becomes entangled with reassuring words that her voice, as soft as a breeze, whispers to me. And for the first time in a while, I am at peace with the beautiful light. Amazed, I stand captured with a gaze that now has focus and meaning, as I have found purpose in that around me.
I call to others who remain trapped, and hopes as bright as the sky painted above me, that they may be free as I have been freed. I call to them so that they may feel the real joys of nature's grasp and a beautiful distraction of that which distracts them. But no matter how loud the call of invitations from my mouth, they are not enticed to the light, but only the darkness which continues to blind them.
I am saddened as no thought is given to what is around them, only to the emptiness that their life traps them in, blinding their eyes to the joyful color that lies in the great hands of Mother Nature. But as I stand in the palms that take away my sorrow, I can only enjoy the world that now surrounds me, and the happiness presented in nature's fingertips allows me to find distraction from their sadness as I bask in the light I have found.
I realize that all I can do for those around me is wait for them to come in touch with their feelings that remain suppressed, so they may search as I have searched and find what I have found. The hands of nature are my own gesture to them, hoping they will realize what lies beyond their hollow world. Too stuck in their darkness, they remain unaware of my gesture, and I remain thankful as I look to them and the misery they feel that I have escaped. I remain thankful to them and the reminder of the life I lived and the life I will not go back to.
But soon, one like me finally breaks free of the cage that was their reality and accept mine and nature's gesture to freedom and peace. As they discover her world just as I have, I watch as their eyes light up like mine once did. I watch their gray life turn to color, and the light their soul so longingly yearned for spread through their veins for the first time. They stand in awe, basking in Mother Nature's light and joy that they have now found. My gratitude for their happiness is subtle but great, like nature itself.
And I realize the longer I spend here, the more I become one with her and her graceful hands that hold me. The more my feelings are tethered to that which has given me purpose.
Hello, bird. To be a bird flying away from the slithering snake of the ominous depression that flows in my heart, following me, stalking me, preying on my every move. To be a bird, drifting in the wind, floating amongst the smiling clouds of the happy sky, free, open, and welcoming. To be a bird, saying hello to the good things in life, mocking me in every sense, wishing, praying, hoping it was me.
butterfly wings. I am a disgrace to nature and don't fit any mold, but what makes me different is nothing of my control. I want to be loved for what I have rather than that which I don't. A body with feathers and a soaring heart and the DNA of their same bones. But my wings are not like theirs and cannot carry me the same. They flutter, not glide, and because of their strangeness, I am ashamed. I have refused to look at them, for they have been hated my whole life, and the way they look is an image that I'd rather be deprived. But today I will leave my home and appreciate my wings for the first time, as they take me away from the same tree I have always lived and help me start my life. Alone and free of the negativity I am no longer surrounded by, I let my wings carry me higher than I have ever been in the sky. And as I cross magnificent scenes that I never knew could be real, I come across a glistening mirror of water that holds my appeal. I look down and catch a glimpse of a reflection that I think may be me, and as I get closer, I know it must be. But all I can do is admire the bright and unique colors woven into my wings and wonder, why did I ever hate such a beautiful thing?
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to tell you a story as true as it is tragic. It starts far away, secluded from the rest of the world. The rest a peaceful city that went by the name of Balaam. It is surrounded by deep and deadly waters, making it impossible to leave. Not that anyone wants to anyways. Balaam itself is a beautiful city. Hundreds of beige, sanded stone buildings with colorful glass roofs that project bright sunlight through the crystal tops. All buildings surrounded a tall, white brick clock tower that sits in the heart of the town, making the city what it is. There is, of course, a ruler of this city, but he has no other title than his name, which is Robert, and he has no other authority than anyone else. He is simply in charge of the schooling system and the occasional events that take place in the city. On the account of needing assistance, he calls for his appointed council to help him. But this is a very rare instance because the citizens of this town have only the intention of doing good and need very little surveillance, which leads Robert's job to be fairly easy. In the city of Balaam, everyone is considerably pleasing to look at, for the air they breathe is like no other, and their skin relishes in the purity of it. No blemishes or wrinkles appear on the faces of the elderly or anyone for that matter. But not only does this air provide youth, it provides joy and the very peace that fills the city. It gives each individual with the chemical balance in their mind, allowing them to find constant harmony within themselves and their lives. How can a community so happy possibly have that which could bring it misery? It couldn't. Another luxury Balaam has is that no one has the stress of working too hard. In fact, no one works at all. Such a thing as money is insignificant here and has no worth whatsoever. Gold, silver, and jewels are a luxury everyone can afford, and they wear these expensive objects daily in their common streetwear. They dress themselves in the finest fabrics such as pure silk and rich fur, and everyone walks the streets presented as royalty. This depletes all judgment that could ever live among the citizens, and only leaves room for love and acceptance for everyone. It truly is a magnificent place. On this particular day in Balaam, millions of citizens flood the streets with cheerful cries of thankfulness for a celebration. Beautiful art designs the streets as citizens smear chalk from paint from their hands on the smooth cobblestone, and the intricate patterns stain the ground until next springfall. Small decorated shops crowd along the streets, giving all kinds of foods and gifts to the citizens as they please, as vibrant colors swirl around the excited individuals. And over all the joyful voices, you can hear the most important laughter of all. It's the children's laughter. They laugh as they take advantage of this glorious day, and there are plenty of games for them to participate in and for treats for them to eat. Anything and everything to ensure their enjoyment. They are the pride of the town, and this festival would not be conceived yearly if it weren't for them. It is a festival of appreciation for the perfect lives of the citizens, all possible because of the children and their innocence. But just as there is yearly testing for children at the elementary school here, there is testing for the children in the story as well. But it's a bit different than taking a couple hours to fill in bubbles. In fact, in this testing, the youngest grade, the 6-year-olds to be exact, partake in a week of questioning and answering. They're each put into a room and observed carefully as they answer crucial questions that speak on the purity of their hearts. And this is where the judges determine the highest score of the exams. As deep thought and observance goes into each child, the judges, who are Robert and his appointed counsel, choose what child is to be selected for the yearly sacrifice to peace. And yes, I said sacrifice. Once the purest child is chosen, this festival takes place celebrating the offer, but more importantly, the reward that comes from it. You see, in order to live in such a perfect world with only harmony and peace, there is a slight flaw in the system, or shall I say, price to be paid. In this city, the citizens need no drugs or addictions to be happy. The city itself provides a sensation of constant contentment with the air mentioned before that fills every set of cheerful lungs. However, this air is not natural to the environment and must be provided somehow. The white brick clock tower in the heart of Balaam is quite literally the heart of the city. It provides the air and perfection of Balaam, or more so, it holds that which provides the air and perfection of Balaam. For under the bell tower that strikes the time of the town, there lies the beast that feeds on the blood of the innocent. And in return for the sacrifice, it releases into the air the town's wealth, youth, and amity among the citizens with its breath. And the only ingredient needed is purity. While most beastly stories are hated and unwelcomed, as they typically only bring destruction and hellfire among communities, this beast does the opposite. In fact, everyone that lives here knows the beast is here and is thankful. Although it's not to be spoken about, for it is a sacred part of the town, and it is the foundation of their very existence. In a sense, the beast is a god among the people, and the citizens worship it for its grace and willingness to give its breath to the citizens for only a small yearly sacrifice. No one actually knows where the beast came from, but it has dwelled in the depth of this part of the earth for as long as the time on the clock tower goes back. And once discovering the magic of the air produced by it, obsession grew in its existence. So, the people and the beast came to an agreement. Feeding it the only thing that appealed to its appetite, they agreed to do the beast's work for it and find the most innocent to sacrifice so it wouldn't have to hunt. In return, it turns its feast of innocence into purity that the people breathe. Now you may ask, how could a whole city so perfect perform an act so horrific as to kill innocent children? Well, I can only respond by first saying that is a valid question. But to put it simply, they are unaware of the horrific act being committed. You see, pure air results in pure thoughts, making it impossible for them to be enlightened of this brutality. Their guilty conscience is wiped away with all of their negative thoughts as they are granted the gift of peace and harmony through the air they can only look at this act as the price to be paid in order to live the way they do. And instead of being guilty, they're thankful. Or so most of them are. Like in most stories, there is an outcast in the city. And unfortunately, not everyone in Balaam is as blessed as one individual. And they are given the horrible disease of mental illness. One that not even the air can fix. And with this mental illness, the chemicals in their mind cannot be as balanced as those around them, and they're unable to find contentment and happiness like everyone else. This individual is the only person who finds this world miserable, as their guilty conscience of the horrific act isn't wiped away. But being raised in a community said to be perfect, they are taught to believe they're the flaw in the system. So they try to ignore this abhorrent cycle of death just as everyone else. But as the fireworks burst into the sky, sending color into the lives of Balaam as everything else does, and the loud booming plays over the screams of the child being slaughtered, they sit silently as everyone cheers. The overjoyed citizens adored the radiant explosion. The flawed person cries internally in awareness of which is happening. Robert is killing the pure children and sending their blood as a sacrifice to the beast, and its long tongue licks up the thick liquid from every crack under the floor it lives. And after this festival is over, when everyone returns home for the night, this person sits under the sky that is now gleaming of stars and not fireworks, and they contemplate thoroughly. There, in the time of Balaam's existence, have been others who have been flawed as this individual. But they have chosen another way to deal with this illness that this individual refuses to do. They have fed themselves to the deadly waters surrounding Balaam, ending their suffering and allowing everyone to live on with peace in their lives and be happy with their mistake. But this individual contemplates another way to fix this problem, for they can no longer allow this monstrosity to continue. And after what was decided to be their last night of misery, the individual came up with a solution. They decided to do that which no other person has ever done in the history of Balaam, and break the rules. They stuck into the bell tower, which is always locked except for this one night when the sacrifice is made, and found the room where the children have been slaughtered. They stood in the four white walls and stared at the fresh red stain that scented the room with a metallic odor, and they couldn't take their eyes off of the red, glistening puddle. Their mind became clouded with the disgust so strong they were driven mad. They began prying the floorboards open with their bare hands, covering their splintered fingers in blood, some of which was their own and so much of which was the innocents. Board after board being ripped away, they discovered the beast that slept peacefully after their yearly feast and shrieked, horrified by the sight. The high-pitched fear that escaped their mouth traveled to the beast's ears and woke it with infuriation. The beast looked to find the terrified individual and was furious with the disturbance they caused. Filled with rage, it quickly sprung from its slumber and devoured the fearful individual with only a few chomps of its sharp teeth. But despite their tragic ending, this individual died with the only contentment they had felt in a while, for their plan had been carried out. With the beast digesting their blood that wasn't innocent, it changed the formula of the air. When Balaam awakened the next day, the air seemed to be poisoned, and the citizens felt a feeling of unease they had never felt before. It wasn't long before they had begun to feel the guilt the same individual that sacrificed themselves to the beast had felt, and they all became corrupt with this unwelcome feeling. Days and days went by, and the people's guilt only grew as they breathed more of the air corrupt with impurity and guilt. The weight of the guilt built up from years and years of innocent slaughter, and the citizens could no longer deal with the unbearable pain with this awareness. They became disgusted with the imperfect world they lived in and had no intention of living in it any longer. Balaam grew dark despite its brightness and colors, and after a week of living this way, Robert decided to do that which could only be done. Accompanied by only his guilt, he took a long walk to the edge of the city and stood in front of the beckoning water. Without looking behind him, at the forsaken town, he stepped into the water and was devoured by its hungry jaws. Soon, one by one, the citizens offered themselves into the roaring waves that no longer seemed as the only threat, but the only thing that could free the people from their suffering. The once lively town of Balaam became desolate and empty, and all that remained was the flawed air. For innocence is the only thing that could make this world perfect, and once taken away, nothing could save it.
Illuminated insides, dripping drops of their luminescent light, and as I dance in their rain, they fall in my eyes, and everything is bright. I lift back my head and stick out my tongue, engulfing the hot liquid and filling my lungs with every burning wish and dream that once lived inside them and now lives in me.
relax, because this will be a wild ride. The Feast of Winston. Winston sat curled into a round ball. His black and white fur looked and felt soft, like a bowl of feathers. I watched him with a smile on my face before going to take my daily walk around the house. A small house gifted to us by Elliot's father as we married. The wooden house looks sad and droopy, but it contrasts nicely against the vibrant green that it sits upon. I never went too far away from the house. After Elliot left a few months ago, randomly being drafted into the army to fight in a war, I've had the house to myself. Staying in the house alone for months on end has had me restless. I usually can manage to get in 30 minutes of sleep a day, but lately it has gotten harder and harder to fall asleep. Winston, however, has no trouble going to sleep. He can go to sleep within seconds of laying down. It's a magical thing he has. I spend most of my time in the house reading. I find it an easy fix to pass time by until the locusts sound through the windows, signaling that it is time to eat. I usually fix myself a plate of vegetables from the small garden I grow in the back of the house. I grow various fruits, corn, cabbage, and green onions. During harvest, I grow pumpkins. I haven't been able to step foot off our property. The thought of being around people without Elliot terrifies me. He usually talks for me and helps me find the words I need for when I need to talk to people. When we first got married, I was highly against him speaking for me. I had already been forced to leave my job. I thought the idea was preposterous. Having a man talk for me was never the life I wanted to live. But Elliot insisted on it. He was hell-bent on creating a respectable image of us. Oh, I love Elliot so much that I agreed to it. It doesn't bother me much now. I actually like not speaking to people, but I haven't spoken to anybody in the past 6 months. The only words I've uttered have been to Winston. Elliot gifted to him before me leaving. I absolutely adored the little creature. His sweet purr and tiny body made me feel like a mother. It is honestly tragic that he can't talk. I would love to hear what he has to say. I wonder why God chose to make these interesting little things but not give them the ability to talk. A conversation with Winston would be ever so captivating. Oh, I wish I could hear him talk. He would probably talk wonders about the warm milk I give him every day at noon. His prickly tongue moves at an incredible speed when he drinks it. It's the fastest I've ever seen anything move. Oh, Winston. I have the urge to see him right now. When my head peeks around the corner, I see Winston wiggling his pink nose in the red mulch surrounding the garden. I let out a laugh. Oh, Winston, how silly of you. You're gonna get your nose so very dirty. I went to pick him up, but his little legs started to run away. I hiked up my dress and began chasing after him. Oh, come here, Winston. We ran and we ran. He eventually jumped through a window to get back into the house. I lifted all my weight and crept slowly through the house to be sure he wouldn't hear me. I slowly rounded the corner and saw him licking his paw of the love seat by the fireplace. He loves to be warm. I slowly creep up behind him and snatch him up before he can escape. I have won the war. Victory is mine. He wiggles in my arms before calming down, sinking into the pocket of warmth, in between my arms. I stare at his big, black back eyeballs and plaster a smile on my face. He reaches his paw to caress my face and my insides melt at his tenderness. Oh, Winston, I do love you so deeply.
I love you too, Baron dear.
I wasn't expecting him to reply, but he did. I released a scream and dropped him out of my hands and ran to the next room. I stopped at the creak of the wooden floors and turned around. Winston sat at the door looking at me in wonder. We stared at each other in silence before I saw his mouth open. Expecting a silent meow, I received a raspy, squeaky voice once again.
Meredith, why did you drop me? My right paw surely does hurt now.
He reaches his paw out to lick the pain away, but he soon drops in what looks like disappointment. How can you talk? You're an animal. He sauntered his way to lay in front of my feet. He rolled over twice before sitting again and lifting his head to stare at me.
Well, I can't tell you that, Meredith. But if you would prefer me to, I'll return back to normal for you.
He started to push his body against my legs and rub his tiny head against the sides of my ankles. Like I was being burned. I quickly moved away from him and rushed to the washroom. I immediately turned to the Victorian mirror and touched my face. I pulled on the dark circles beneath my eyes, felt the hair on my eyebrows, touched my chapped lips, and squeezed my cheeks. I had to be sure I was alive. My eyes held a crazed look. I clearly needed to rest. This is simply my brain playing tricks on me. I opened the door and walked straight to my room. I closed all the windows and shut the blinds. My dark room was now filled with brisk, cold air in my warm body. I climbed into my cream-colored sheets and sunk into the mattress. My eyes closed, and I stared into the abyss of my eyelids. As I waited for him to sleep to come, I remembered Winston. Usually, he would be at the edge of my bed, but now I wondered what he was doing. Maybe he was practicing talk. Wait, that wasn't real. I just need to sleep. I just need to sleep. I continued to repeat the words until I felt a slight movement at the bottom of my bed. Throwing the cover over my head, I tried to pretend I wasn't there. Surely, if I'm still enough, he won't even notice I'm here. I stopped my breathing and became as still as a statue.
I do know you're in there, Meredith.
I threw the covers off me and moved closer to the head of the bed. For 5 minutes, we looked at each other. Winston tilted his head to the side and stared at me with curiosity. I stared at him with pure terror. I am losing my mind. Winston lets out a high-pitched laugh, throwing me off guard. The raspy tone to the laugh was eerily creepy, yet I wanted to hear more. I leaned further away from him as I asked, "How can you do that? How can you laugh?" He laid down, curling his legs and arms under him. He sat like a loaf of bread. His head tilted.
How can you laugh?
The question threw me for a loop as I struggled to give him an answer. How did I laugh? I suppose I just do. Whenever I'm with Elliot, he never lets me laugh in public. He says it bothers some men to hear such obnoxious laughter from women. He says not everyone has the pleasure of having something to laugh about. Oh, how I do miss him and his wise words. I suppose I don't know how I can laugh. It just happens sometimes. The curve of his tiny bottom lip curls into something along the lines of a smile. He is smiling at me. The sight makes me smile. Oh, I do love to look at Winston, even if he does talk. A talking cat. I do remember wishing for him to talk earlier. Maybe a shooting star heard me and made my wish. Is this because I wished for you to talk earlier? Did my wish come true? Winston laughs again and scoots closer to me.
If that's what you want to think, then yes. I am whatever you want me to be, Meredith.
His words confuse me, but I brushed it off. I have a talking cat. My terror turned itself into excitement. Moving from my spot at the head of the bed, I curled my body around Winston with my face sitting right in front of his. Thinking of a plethora of questions, I decided to settle on the general greeting questions. So, tell me about yourself, Winston. He leaned his head back and yawned before giving me a response.
There isn't much to tell. I am still a cat. I was first a cat of a very old man. He would always be in the kitchen, cooking some cuisine and serving it to himself, and sometimes me. I do miss him. He died a few years ago. I was left with some of his family, but from there, I came here. Elliot found me for you.
Oh, how sweet of Elliot. He was always thinking of me. Thinking of him made my chest tight. I imagined him somewhere lost on the battlefield with the hole in the dead center of his head. Black smoke floating out the hole with his eyes wide open, with the last memory of them being one of me. The thought made me terribly sad. When I focused back on Winston, my hand found its way to my chest and was clutching my dress.
Are you okay, Meredith?
A boisterous laugh escaped from my belly as I realized that was the first time I'd been asked that, and it was by my cat. How outrageous. How nice of you to ask, Winston. I suppose I'm not okay. I haven't seen much of people since Elliot has been gone. He was my anchor. My eyes fall to Winston's paws, and I mindlessly trace the outline of them as I talk. And I haven't gotten much sleep lately. My mind constantly runs with thoughts of Elliot. I wonder if he's alive on the battlefield, and each day that passes by, my gut is telling me he isn't. I haven't even cried yet. And I can't work to pass time because he's not here because of the bar. I just feel stuck in my head. I turned on my back and released a sigh. I would kill for an ounce of sleep. Like lucky you, Winston. You can go to sleep whenever you want. Winston was staring at me with his eyes wide and observing.
What if I told you I could help you sleep?
I propped up on my elbows, ignoring the slight numbness that came with the position. Well, I tell you, I'll take all the help I can get. Winston laughed at me before squinting his body so that his lips were right next to my left ear. He sniffed my ear before giving it a quick lick. The sandpaper feel sent shivers through my body. For some reason, I was stuck in my place.
Eat me.
The words he whispered evoked the gas from my lips. Eat you? You want me to eat you? Winston, I could and would never do such a barbaric thing. Oh, if Elliot could see us now, he'd have a fit over this. Winston gingerly put his head on my face before uttering his next words.
You'll be able to rest. You'll finally be able to rest.
I was bewildered by his words. He wanted me to eat him. He was okay with it. Why, Winston? Why do you want me to eat you?
I see you through the night. You're slowly losing your mind, Meredith. You know you are.
I was losing my mind. Hell, I think I've known for a while now, but what could I do? How will eating you, taking away your life, help me? It took Winston a while to reply. For a second, I thought the witch had lost his powers and Winston was now a talkless animal again. The thought made me sad, but my spirit soon lifted when he started talking again.
You'll finally be able to rest.
But you'll be gone. And I love you, Winston, I truly do.
And I love you, Meredith. And I know that this is for your own good.
I was confused, but some little voice in my head said he was right. Winston does a lot of things, but he sleeps during most of them. There has to be some science to it that can explain why cats sleep so much. Maybe it's because they live in a world free of problems? No, to live in a world free of problems. The longer I think about it, the more sense it makes. If I eat Winston, he lives inside me. We'll be one, we'll be connected. Binded by each other, I can get the rest he does. I'm afraid that I won't see you again. We are face to face, whispering to each other like school children sharing a secret.
You won't see me again, but I'll always be with you.
A tear slips out of my right eye and lands on the exposed sheets between us. Winston watches the tear fall and immediately licks my cheek to stop any more from falling. When do you want to go, Winston?
Whenever you are ready to sleep, Meredith.
I nod my head and enjoy the silence before mustering up the courage to pick Winston up. I lay him on my shoulder as if I was carrying a newborn child. Winston nestles his head in between my shoulder and collarbone, sending shingles down my back every time he breathes out. I walk him around the house before going outside, careful not to step off the lawn. I walk him around for a few minutes, meaningless words flowing between us about the nighttime sky. Winston jumps out of my arms to chase a lone squirrel trying to get home. As I watch him, my heart tears into two. One half eager to rest, and the other heartbroken at never seeing Winston again. Like he sensed my conflicting heart, he came back to me and started to go in and out of my legs. His soft fur tickled me with each movement he made. We eventually migrated back into the house and into the kitchen. Winston jumped on top of the dinner table and curled himself into the perfect loft. I poured him a bowl of warm milk and let him look away for the last time as I prepared the oven. I lit the fire on the stove and it lit gradually warm. I went into my garden and picked the freshest fruit and vegetables that I had, cutting them into tiny slices. I mixed them in a wooden salad bowl gifted to us by Elliot's mother. The time has come where I must kill him. My hands shaking and unsteady, reach for Winston and lay him upon my shoulder once again. I rock my body side to side while holding my hand against his head. I hum a little tune and hear his lovely purr. As quick as I can, I pull his head and snap his neck. Silence. I held him close to me for a little while longer. By the time I let him go, his fur was drenched in my salty tears. I kept repeating to myself that this was for the best. It is for the best. I took a knife from the counter and started to skin his black and white coat. When I was younger, my father would sneak and teach me how to skin his killings after going hunting. My mom despised seeing me do unladylike things. I never did tell Elliot I knew how to do this. He would more than likely insist for me to unlearn the skill, and I know I would do it. After I skinned Winston and cleaned his cooling flesh, I set him on a platter and placed him in the oven. To keep myself from thinking about the murderous hands attached to my body, I went to read. I was midway into The Lost Princess of Oz, a popular book among my past students when I was a teacher. Oh, how long ago that was. I try not to get sad about not being able to work anymore. Elliot says it's a good thing for me not to work. Once I started to smell the burnt stench of Winston, I knew my meal was nearly finished. I went to the kitchen and took him out to cool. Taking a knife, I cut his meat into squares and put them over the fruits and vegetables, making a salad. I made myself a glass of warm milk, just how Winston liked, and sat at the table and began to eat. I ate until every last piece of Winston was gone. My belly full and bloated, I drank the milk, knowing Winston would enjoy it. A few seconds passed and I moved to my room, cutting off every light within the house. I changed into sleeping wear and climbed into bed. An unfamiliar feeling moved from my stomach out my mouth, surprising me. It was a yawn. I wasted no time in sinking to my mattress and closing my eyes, my last thought being a familiar voice telling me to rest. And I did.
Now Above by Katie Spears. My feet used to sag in the puddles, but I have learned to walk on water.
Cloudy vision. You've got your heads in the clouds and it is fogging up your vision, they told me. But if this foggy vision helps me see any differently than you, I think I'll keep my head up. Music in the strings.
I can feel the metallic strings under my fingers. The vibration of their song spreads from the hollow wood to every wall I am trapped in, making them expand and grow wider, almost as wide as my mind becomes as it is filled with the music that vibrates from the strings under my fingers.
Brown. No. Amber. With a touch of golden sap. Carved from the calloused hands and musical notes, deep moaning and groaning, pleasured from the bow that rides your strings. Oh, cello, the things you do to me.